Last time on Cool Explorations, you just heard Andrew Williams talk about his battle with brain cancer, and he started off by just telling us a little about himself, sharing his testimony. And today we're really going to talk about that brain cancer that he started talking about last time. And Joshua 1:9 is one section that really speaks to his battle, and that section of scripture here reads, have I not commanded you, be strong and courageous, do not be frightened, and do not be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. So this is part two of a three-part segment that we're doing with him. So today he's going to talk a little bit more about that battle that he has with cancer.
But anyways, regarding being I guess kind of at home on bed rest, I started noticing things about my body, like like aches, pains, things like that, and I discovered I had I had a lump in my neck, and it was rock hard. It was really solid, and I was like, whoa, what is this? So I was recovering, so I decided to do telehealth, video chats with
Yeah.
doctors, and I told them my symptoms, and then most of them said, you know, I don't think it's anything to worry about. Just keep an eye on it. And then one doctor said, the worst that can happen is cancer, but that type of cancer that it could be, there's a 90% cure rate, so I wouldn't stress. I was like, okay. And so I just kind of left it alone. And and then after that, I just noticed that like this anxiety was still there. That's what a doctor tells you. You can't help but think about that. So I decided to go clear my mind, and I went to an arcade. And at the arcade, they have they have you done axe throwing? Taking throw an axe at a target.
I haven't. I've seen it. We actually have it. Yeah, it's in the summer. They set up a little booth for that. Actually, yeah,
Oh,
I have.
okay.
So yeah.
So it's the first time I saw that was at this arcade, close to my home, and I went there. And when I was there, I was waiting in line for my turn, and there was this couple in front of me. They were just doing their thing, and all of a sudden I had this intense feeling of anxiety, and I started having like cold sweats. I got really scared because all the thoughts started coming in. It's like, oh, you're really sick, you don't know what's happening, like blah blah blah, and this is going to happen to you. And I got scared, and as soon as that hit me, and that cycle of thought um kept occurring, the woman in front of me was wearing a hoodie, and she turned around in that moment, and she took her hoodie off, and she was wearing a bright orange shirt. And in huge white letters on this bright orange shirt said, faith over fear. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, I know I was being spoken to. And I was like, calm down. You're letting the enemy get to you. And it was an amazing moment. And I was just like, okay, let's make a real in-person appointment with a specialist, an ENT, ear, nose, and throat doctor. And so the next day I did, and I was able to get an appointment with him. I went to go see him, and he checked out the lump in my neck, and he checked out my sinuses, and he says, "Well, it doesn't seem like it's anything too worrisome, but let's have a CT scan then." I was like, "Okay, doctor." So he sent me to have a CT scan on my sinuses and on my throat, and I go to meet with him the next day. He said, "I got your results, and uh, we found something. It's a little strange. So let's have a talk about it." So I sat down, and he said, "We found some polyps in your nose that we need to check, but I'm not that concerned about that. Um, the the lymph node in your neck, that's hard. That's something we can get biopsy on. But what I'm really concerned is, we noticed. I looked at this with a radiologist, and we noticed that something's sticking out behind your sinus, and it's not in your sinus, but it's something that's not supposed to be there. So I would like to send you to get an MRI done today." So I was like, okay. So I go to get an MRI done. The day after the MRI, I get a call from him and his nurse, or from his office, and his nurse goes, "Andrew, are you busy right now?" I said, "No." So she says, "You need to come in immediately." I rush over to the office. I sit down. He walks in the door. He closes that door behind him quickly, and he just stares at me. And he goes, "Do you have any symptoms? Anything at all? Anything that's weird?" I said, "No, I feel fine, like for the most part. Nothing like urgent in the moment." And he says, "We need to talk." pulls up a chair, sits right in front of me, and he's holding all my MRI scans. And he says, Andrew, um, so I reviewed your scans, and this is what we found. And he said, there's a lemon-sized tumor, brain tumor in your head. And he said, you're telling me that no headaches, no seizures, nothing? And I said, no, I don't feel a thing. And he said, okay. And he says, I need to refer you to a neurosurgeon immediately because we don't know the severity. This isn't what I do. So as soon as we're done with this meeting, I'm going to send you down the hallway to the neurosurgeon in this building, and hopefully that you guys can get things, get the ball rolling quickly. And so I was like, okay. So as soon as I left his office, went down the hall, went into another doctor's office, and scheduled an appointment with him. So I had my appointment with him later. And so when I got there, he did a physical test on me. Just, checked on, like how my movements were and all this. And then so sat down at his desk and he had his computer up and he's going through the scans with me, telling me what he wants to do. He's like, oh yeah, giving me his background, just kind of telling me all these details. And he says, so I see the tumor here. And what I would like to do is I would like to cut around it. And so I would be cutting out a part of your brain to get the tumor. And I want to tell you that most likely you'll lose the ability to talk, but don't worry, it should come back. And so he tells me that, and I was just like, what? And then so he's trying to go through my MRI slides on his computer, and he was having difficulty. And he's an older gentleman. And after giving him a few minutes, I stood up, I went behind his desk, and I showed him how to use his own computer to go through the slides, zoom in, zoom out, and just cycle through them. That moment, I said, I am not letting you touch me. You can't even figure out how to just zoom in and out of your MRI slides on a computer that, in your own office. I was like, mm-mm. So I left his office, and I ended up going to my general practitioner doctor. And I told him what had happened and my diagnosis, and he says, okay, Andrew, so we need to get you to see an oncologist so they can kind of see what's going on. And there's an oncologist in this building. And so I went to go see this oncologist. And when I went there, he said, well, first off, Andrew, I don't have the proper equipment to look at your MRIs on the level I need to. And so, but he says, from what I see, this definitely looks like brain cancer. And the next discussion we have to have is based on, so now you're a brain tumor patient, we need to have a discussion on how long you have left. And I'm like, excuse me, you don't even know what I'm really diagnosed with, the extent of it or anything. And you want to talk about how long, on average I would have left to live. And I was like, that doesn't sit well with me at all. But this is where I feel that divine intervention has come to play. The night before I met with an oncologist, so I already knew I had a brain tumor. So I decided to research on it. And so I was going through online, through all these sites, watching videos, and I came across this one video of this neurosurgeon who was having a meeting with a scientist, and they were having a debate on how to address brain tumors. And the scientist says, oh, I have this clinic in Houston, and where it's I created this compound that can dissolve a tumor and things like that. And then this neurosurgeon was like, no, I don't agree with that. Because, as a neurosurgeon, the only way to treat a tumor is to remove it, chemo, or radiation, or all three. And so they had a debate. And I remember whenever I heard that neurosurgeon say that, I was just like, that's a very closed-minded, I guess way to approach things, to think that there is no alternatives. It's just that and that alone. And, regardless of whatever information or testimonies are out there, et cetera, it's like, he just didn't care. He was very in a box. And so it didn't sit well with me. I don't like to interact with people that are just, they don't like to, think outside the box. And so anyway, so it's funny, and why I said this is where divine intervention has kicked in. Going back to that meeting with that oncologist, he said, well, Andrew, do you have a neurosurgeon yet? I said, no, I don't. He said, I happen to know two neurosurgeons at Cedars-Sinai, which is considered one of the best hospitals in the United States. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. And so he showed me two names of them. He said, "Do you know either one of these? Or do you have one that you would prefer me to contact?" And as soon as he showed me the names, the first name he showed me was the name of the doctor I had watched the night before where I didn't resonate with. And I said, "No, not him." It was the craziest thing. I didn't even know where this neurosurgeon I watched on this video was from. And so I saw it, I was like, wow, okay. And so I looked at the second name. I said, let's go with him. And so he texted him immediately. And I got a call that day from that neurosurgeon's office, the one I decided to go with. And it was his nurse. And she said, "Hi, this is so and so. Are you Andrew Williams?" I said, "Yes." And she's like, "Okay, so the doctor will make an appointment with you, and yeah, you'll come into the office, so we'll have a consultation and we'll go from there." So I said, "Great." So she said, "We'll give you a call in a few days and we'll let you know." 30 minutes later, I got a call and I picked up, and it's this man that I was just like, "Who is this?" He goes, "This is Andrew." I said, "Yes." And he says, "Hi, this is Dr. Yu." And I said, "Okay, from where?" And he said, I'm from, so and so, and uh, I got a text message from my friend oncologist, and he sent me your information, and I'd like to have a talk with you. We ended up talking for half an hour, and he said, "Okay, so we're going to get you set up to come in and see me, and we'll have a consultation and go from there." I get a call from his nurse a few minutes later, and she says, "Okay, Andrew, so I need to set up your appointment with him and everything." And I told her, I said, "I already spoke to him." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "I didn't call you yet." I said, "You didn't, but he did." And she said, "Are you mistaken?" I said, "No." I literally just spoke to him, and she said, "Andrew, I've been working with him for years. He has never called a patient. He has never called a patient to consult with them, to set up an appointment, anything. It's always been through us, his nurses." She's like, "This is the first time I've ever heard of him doing this." I was
Wow.
like, "Okay." So anyway, so I got the appointment scheduled. I went into his office, and this is where things got really interesting. Um, so came in, met with me, shook my hand, and pulled up my MRI scans on the computer. And he says, "Andrew, I'm going to give you some history about me, so you know who I am, and so you're not just like, who's this random person." So he told me, he's like, "Andrew, I've been doing this for my entire career as brain tumors. I have patients who fly in from all over the world, so I can operate on them because they trust in my abilities. And I'm going to tell you now, from what I see, this is 80% more or more probability that this is brain cancer, and it's very close to your brain stem. So if it touches your brain stem, you are either going to drop dead immediately or immediately go into a coma, and it's already putting pressure there, and it's very close. And so this is my plan of action, what I want to do. This is like, ABC, XYZ." And so he looks at me and he says, "You're very stoic. You didn't say anything. Do you have any questions for me?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Doctor, I have three questions for you." So number one, "Are you married with kids?" He said, "Yes." And I said, "Number two, do you have a son? And if you do have a son, everything you went through with me today, would you change a single thing?" He said, "Yes, I do have a son. And no, I would not change a single thing." Number three, "Do you believe in God?" And he looks at me, goes, "I'm a Christian." And I said, "Okay, now I need to tell you this, doctor." I said, "I truly believe that I was sent here by God to you, for you to be able to use your skills, use your wisdom, use your knowledge, use your hands to remove this tumor from my head. But however, I do not believe in your diagnosis of cancer because I only believe what my creator says for me. And you are not my creator because he created you as well." And so he looked at me, he shook my hand, smiled, and he left. Anyways, we got the surgery scheduled. So I'm sitting in the pre-op room, and I'm there with, my mom, my sister, and some other people, and some friends. And my sister had flown over from Singapore. As soon as she found out, she flew over here. And what's interesting is, um, my sister and my mom have a rather estranged relationship. Just, like they don't get along too well. And so they were both there at the same time. And my mom flew in from Florida. So everyone kind of came to me. So yeah, I'm over here, and so I'm sitting in the in the pre-op room, and the doctor arrives, and I ask him, and he's telling me like, we're getting prepped, and this is how it's going to go. And then so I said, doctor, I said, can we pray? And he said, absolutely. So I held hands with him, my mom, and then sisters, and there's like her sister, and then there's like a ring of us, and we're all praying together. I lead the prayer, and then um, I can feel the tension between my mom and my sister. And so he goes off, he preps for the operation. And so my mom handed me this cross, and it's called the Hope Cross. And she said, I got this for you, and you hold on to it when you're scared. And I was like, okay. And so I was holding on to it. And I looked at my sister and I looked at my mom, and I told them, I know you guys haven't had the best relationship through the years, but I'm telling you now, I need you guys to come together again. And I took their hands, and I made them hold hands, and I put my hands over both of theirs together. And I said, I don't know what's going to happen to me, but I need you guys to love each other again. And I said, you got to squash whatever it is. It's not worth it. And I started crying, and my sister and my mom started crying. And I said, life is too short. You
Mhm.
can't let this get to you. You can't let this get in between you. And so, anyways, the anesthesiologist came, and the nurses came, and they said, Andrew, we're ready for you. And so anesthesiologist, he injected me, and next thing I know, I open my eyes, and I look around, and I'm thinking, when are we going to go into the OR? When are we going to start this? And then all of a sudden, they're rolling my bed. I'm laying in the bed, they're rolling me away, and then they put me in a room, and I'm looking around, and I see my sister there, and I'm so confused, and I'm just thinking like, why am I still waiting? And then I realized I already had the surgery, and I was like, whoa, But here's where it gets a little weird. Um, the nurses came and started talking to me, asking me these things, and I realized I go to talk to them, but I can't talk. It's the weirdest thing in the world. Your brain is like, say this, but then you go to speak and you just don't know how.
Mm.
You just like words don't come out. It's just like, ugh, and you're like, that didn't sound right. And then it would switch. I noticed sometimes I wouldn't be able to talk, but then sometimes I wouldn't be able to understand what's coming in, but I'd be able to speak. It was the strangest feeling. And I felt so like trapped in my own head. And so when I was sitting in the ICU, I finally realized I had surgery, and the pain hit. The pain was so intense. That I didn't know how to comprehend. Even the painkillers they give me, yeah, I mean, literally, they cut open my head and took part of my skull out. So I was like, oh
Mm.
my gosh. And so I got up out of the I got up out of my bed in the ICU. I started walking, and some weird reason, my mind said, you got to get out of here. You got hurt. You need to exit this place because it caused you pain. So I saw the door, exit door. I started walking towards it, and then nurses came like, whoa, whoa, Andrew, no, you can't. You need to lie down. And so I'm just like, no, I shouldn't be here. And then so I'm in a hospital robe. I don't have underwear or anything. I just have socks and a hospital robe, and the back isn't tied, and so my butt is just all up like in the air, and I have nurses chasing me down the hallway, and the nurses are like, they're like have their arms wrapped, they're like, Andrew, no, you got to get back. And then I was just like so adamant. I was like, I gotta get out here. That they called the police on me to help them subdue me and put me back in my bed. And so they're trying to be really gentle because I literally was out of surgery for like an hour ago or less. And then so they're just like, we gotta be careful. So they got me back to my bed, and they ushered me back. And then they kind of gently tied me down so I wouldn't like move because I was just like, ah. Um, but anyways, I calmed down, and and then the nurses came, they tried to give me a catheter, and my sister is like, don't do that, he's not gonna like that. So I'm so glad for my sister for standing up for me because I didn't know what was happening. So I fell asleep, and I woke up, and I woke up to the neurosurgeon by my side, and he said, Andrew, how are you feeling? And I go to speak, and I still can't talk. I was like, okay. That's in my head I'm thinking, okay, that's unfortunate. And so I could just either nod my head, or I could make a sound or something close to you know something like that I understood him. And so he says, well, I'm here to let you know how the surgery went. And so I was like, okay. Um, he says, "Well, I was the tumor was on the speech portion of your brain, and there's a lot of swelling." And he said that I was only able to remove 95% of it because the 5% I left was wrapped around a blood vessel, and I didn't want to risk nicking that blood vessel and you bleeding to death. And so he said, I had the tumor tested twice. One, we looked to see if it spread to other parts of your brain. And two is we took the tumor, a piece of that tumor, and we sent it to pathology immediately. And we just got the results back, and I'm going to go over it with you. And then so I just kind of nod my head, and I'm laying down looking at, I'm on my side in fetal position looking up at him. And then he says, so the results came back, and I need to tell you that my diagnosis was wrong. It's benign. And I looked at him, I smiled, and I closed my eyes. And I knew in that moment that I had done the right thing. And I stuck to my guns. I believed, and that changed so many things. Now, I'm not saying recovery was easy, but from that moment on, that was a game changer.
Thank you for listening to Cool Explorations. You've just been listening to Andrew Williams, a brain cancer survivor, talk about his battle with cancer, what the battle was like, and about his surviving, and how God has really worked through his life to create a miracle in his heart as well as a miracle in his body. And he wants to leave us off with a piece of advice for those who are battling with seemingly insurmountable health issues. He's got some really important advice that he's just left us with. I hope that you've enjoyed part 2 of this conversation, and I hope that you'll tune in tomorrow to hear the conclusion of this wonderful conversation. If you would like to reach me for any reason, you can do so at tpeters745@gmail.com.